Hello, people. I hope you can hear me. Espen Kraft here, and welcome to this live stream today, Sunday, 24th of July. It's 8 o'clock in the evening here in Norway. We've had some nice weather recently, nice and warm for us, up against 86 degrees Fahrenheit. That's close to 30 in Celsius. And in this little room I'm sitting right now, it's kind of hot to put it mildly. So hopefully the camera won't shut down from overheating as it tend to do if I'm recording. This is now just streaming, so hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll be able to watch this stream. I'd be grateful if you just could tell me in the comment section that you're hearing me well and you're seeing me okay. And the music you heard in the beginning here was my Commodore 64 version of the Golden Boy, actually made on a real Commodore 64, not emulations or anything like that, a real Commodore 64. And the topic of this stream tonight is something I thought would be of interest to you. And as you know, I make retro-inspired synth-pop, mainly from the 80s, but I do occasionally touch and cross over into the 90s as well. I actually did a lot more music in the 90s than in the 80s, but I dabble in both decades, mostly the 80s, and as such, I have my preferred way of doing things, both in terms of hardware routing and the way I organize my studio, the way I set everything up. And once I start recording stuff, I have my ways of doing it inside my DAW, as I guess many of you have as well. You have your own ways of doing things, your workflow, which you stick to. And that's all good and well. There are many ways to roam, and there are no rights or wrongs when we make music, no matter if it's retro-inspired or modern. And as such, I have a good friend of mine, and he's doing great retro-inspired synth pop as well. And he and we are very different in the terms in the way we work with our gear, and our workflows are different, and musically we're very different, and we often find it very amusing that a lot of people say that we sound very much alike, because we really can't see that ourselves. I guess it's the same way when people looking at children, etc. Oh, he's looking at much as his mother or of his father, and the parents can't see it. So maybe it's something like that. I don't know. So tonight I thought we could, compare a little bit between him and me. I haven't said his name yet, but you've probably read the description to the stream, so you know who I'm talking about, but I'll introduce him soon. And he and I, we're going to talk a little bit about our differences. We're going to show a little bit from our studios and give you a couple of examples of how we do things differently. But again, there are no rights or wrongs, many ways leading to the same result. And to some of us, the journey is just as important as the destination. And at least it's like that for me when I'm working on my own music. It's often different if I'm working on music for someone else, but when I'm working for my personal music, my own albums and songs, the journey is just as important as the end result. I think the end result will benefit from a nice journey getting there, and that's how I see it. And if you have questions, please leave them in the comment section, and I'll try to pull out a few, and maybe both of us can answer those questions based on our own viewpoint as such. And let's get started, and I'll introduce my guest now. And his name is Anders Jensen. So let's see if we can pull him out of the hat here and see how he's doing. Hello, Anders.
Hi, Espen. Thank you for having me.
Can you hear me? Thank you for joining us. Can we hear Anders, people? Please let us know in the comment section.
I hope so.
How are you doing this evening?
I'm good. And you?
You're good? I'm fine, thank you. It's hot here because I don't have any air conditioning, which I think you have.
I invested in air conditioning because otherwise I would melt.
Yeah.
In my studio, you know how big it is, so.
Yes.
As you know.
Oh, Anders has a really nice setup here, as you can see, with all his hardware gear and video mixers and everything. So I hope you'll appreciate what he's done here for us tonight. And let's delve straight in, Anders. And I talked a little bit in the beginning here about how you and I have often talked about that some people think we're making very much, our music is very much alike. We don't really think that ourselves, do we?
No, I guess it's we're kind of similar, but we do have different approaches, and you have a more UK based 80s sound. I'm more of the US late 80s, early 90s, I guess. A little bit more David Foster, a little bit more oomph. I would
That's
say.
true. Where I go Erasure, you go David Foster. So that's definitely something we have in common. That we go. I stay in the Brit land while you go into the promised land, the US.
I know. Yeah.
I see that some saying you are quiet in your volume here.
Is it pretty high here? But is it better now?
I hear you good here, but it's up to the people out there if they hear you well, good enough.
We can try to do some settings here. Hope this.
Anders is very low in volume, I hear, and Anders is difficult to hear, very soft.
Is it better now? Adjust the mic gains. Testing. 1 2 1 2.
Just have to talk louder, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
Not much. Not much to do. People, if you're watching and Anders is quiet, just turn up your volume. And if I'm too loud, I can lower my mic volume as well. If you prefer that, I can do that right now. So Anders, let's talk about hardware first. As we can see behind you, you have lots and lots of gear. I know some of this gear because it's come from me, and some of this gear has actually gone between us a couple of times before it's ended up at your place.
That's true.
Yeah.
Some of the gear from my collection has found its way to your hands. You're much more capable of making videos than I am. I just make music.
Don't know about that, but when I see all that hardware, is it fair to say that you too depend on a lot of vintage hardware to make your sound?
Yeah, I would say so. It's a little bit it's a two-edged sword. The gear acquisition syndrome is very prominent, and it's easy to fall under the under its heavy weight. So
Yeah.
But I like to have gear accessible, and I like to have some what do you know? What do you mean? I need to have some nice hard gear to play up, so I can get some feedback while I'm playing.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of just I have Nexus 4, as you can see later. I'm going to show my DAW and everything, but Nexus 4 from ReFX, very nice, but it's also I tend to get overwhelmed sometimes. I feel like, oh, it's too many sounds, too many options to choose from. So sometimes I try to do what you have also been talking about. Limit yourself to just a few modules, if possible. And then
And here's one thing straight away. That's as you're pile of hardware gear has increased. Mine has decreased because I've sold off a lot of my hardware in the last couple of years, and some of it to you actually, but that's not really the point. But I found that I can do more and more with plugins these days. Again, for me, it's a mix between working for other people and for myself. And I found out that by keeping a few select pieces of hardware from the 80s that mean a lot to me, I found that I can do faster and more work with plugins than hardware. So for me, it's been kind of a natural step now to get rid of some of my hardware in favor of some new plugins, etc. But for you, it's you just keep
Well,
on amassing hardware and gear.
no, after correct you there, I haven't actually bought anything since 2021.
Oh,
After the pandemic, I've kind of during the pandemic I hit a saturation point. So
yeah,
what you see around me is actually what I have, and it's been much the same ever since. It's the same layout. I've
yeah,
done a few upgrades in the rack and a couple of keyboards, but still, it's just actually the same amount. So it's about 60
yeah,
units, 60, 70 units in total,
exactly,
which is
exactly.
way too much, actually. But it's nice to. It's a collection. Once you acquired it, it's like, oh, this one is a little bit. You have
Yeah,
some affection. It's like something you wanted for to amass for quite a while, and then you
yeah,
okay. If I feel like I can keep it, I keep it. So basically, but
yeah,
I felt
right.
that there wasn't anything that I wanted after a certain point. It was like, oh,
No,
okay. Of course you could get those holy jewels, the Jupiter 8 or the Prophets or stuff like that, PPG 2,
yeah,
but still they cost so much more than it's actually worth. So I think no,
absolutely,
I'll do
absolutely.
with what I have.
Yeah, I've talked about this earlier in a previous stream about the price of both the vintage synths and modern synths today. And yeah, let's not go that way. That's not what this stream is about. But seeing all that hardware behind you, and I have some myself as well. And I've been to your studio, and we'll get back to how you hook things up and route things up momentarily. But what I've found is that I like to keep my gear pretty much unhooked from my DAW, and for me, it's basically the use of patch bass. That's how I connect my synths and gear these days, and I have a couple of rows of patch bass which I use to hook things up. And most of the time, I simply have my synths in not storage, but I have them, piled up against a wall. And when I feel like it, when I think that, okay, the Roland S10, I have a nice bass sound on that, I just go and pick that up and take it into the studio and hook it up through the patch bay. And then I record it. And when I've recorded it, I just, take it back to where it came from and maybe not using
Hmm.
it for another 2 months. But you, my friend, you have another type of another way of doing things because you have everything hooked up when you turn on your studio switch, so to speak. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's true. I've I've always approached this well my studio is always a live setup. It's everything live and hooked and ready at the get go. So I can show you. Let's see if I'll show you my. Here's my desktop. So what I've done is I have all my keyboards are hooked up using 10 to 128 MIDI Express 128, which also they all have 8 inputs and outputs. So everything is hooked up around the studio with all the information that you need. So you can have all the manufacturers and the models, and then everything is hooked up. Don't buy. There we are. So So when I start my DAW, I have everything up and ready.
Yeah.
I can just show you these. So I have various tracks and groups. So everything is grouped in order in how they're located in the studio. And then I can
Yeah.
go around assessing everything
Nice.
as I feel.
Yeah. So you basically have everything hooked up all the time. So when you want to play your Roland MKS 80, you just have it in your DW template, sort of to speak.
Yeah, that's just to find the Roland. Let's see, it's down in the bottom here. So there is.
Yeah,
And I can just
nice.
browse and there we go.
Nice. I get some comments here, Anders, that the volume difference is very, the difference is too much. Is there any way to just crank up the volume from yours?
I just did the settings here and said that the StreamYard should just automatically adjust the mic volume, but I'm not sure if it's working.
No. Well, we can't do much more than that.
I'm trying to find. Yeah, well, if you keep on checking, I can go and find some of the mics.
Yeah, if it is the mic. Hey, people, did you hear Anders playing his synth there, or was that low in volume as well? We just have to learn as we go along here, I guess. So if you have any comments, please say so we can sort of trying to get this sound thing right. But as just, I can lower the volume at mine. How about this one? The synth was also low volume, it says. I've turned my mic down very much now. Can you still hear me in the stream? Please let me know.
Testing 1, 2.
We'll just have
to buy a new microphone then.
Have to press on. Have to press on. Okay, people. So Anders, he has his DAW setup with all his synths in a nice setup there. He can choose and pick out any synth in his rack as he goes along. And again, that looks awesome. It's not something I want to do. I'm very comfortable with the way I'm doing things and just picking out the synths I want from my pile. And what I'm using is basically a couple of preamps, like you see here. I have, for example, one of these. I have a Audient ID22 hooked up to my DAW, and with an ADAT in optical line in, I can use my ASP 800 or 880 from Audient as well, with 8 analog inputs. And with the 2 I have from the Audient ID22, I have 10 inputs, analog inputs into my DAW. But most of the time, I just record 2 monos, a stereo synth. That's basically all I'm doing at any given time. So I really don't use that 8-channel preamp all that much. I basically go through the stereo inputs of the ID22, and that's basically my setup these days. How's your audio interface situation, Anders? What do you use?
Took me out. There we are.
Yeah, I took out.
Yes. Well, I used to use the Motu series, the Audio 2408, using the proprietary DSP card that came from Motu.
Yeah.
Those recently, during the pandemic, they died on me, so I couldn't buy any more, and they were obsolete. So I went for Dante Audio. So I have, as you can see here, I'm using Dante Audio virtual sound card. And
you're using Dante.
Yep. So I have everything here in my. Hang on. If we go here, everything's coming in
Nice.
and out. This is my setup. So I have 32 digital inputs and outputs
Cool.
going
Yeah,
to
nice.
the LS9 mix, which is behind me here.
Yeah.
So those reflect all my inputs and outputs in the DAW. So when I go here and select all my inputs and outputs, I have them where I want them.
Yeah,
I have
nice.
a lot of buses and things. So my and that one actually goes into a Mackie Big Knob. So if you're talking in terms of interface, actually that's the Mackie Big Knob. That's the interface I have. That everything comes down back into the DAW using
Okay.
that one. Because I
Nice.
have combined them into a aggregate device. So I have both Dante and the Mackie Big Knob as a unit.
So how many analog inputs do you have in your system?
I counted, I think 220 something. I have 5 Behringer X32s with the S16 dual snakes, because the mixer itself only has 16, so you have to add 16 extra inputs to get 32
Cool.
times 5 minus 1 input. Well, a stereo input is the stereo from all those. So this 32 times 5, and then the rest of the analog inputs from the 32 minus those 5, or the 10 inputs there from S9.
So you basically have around 100
200
and
something.
200 analog inputs
Yeah,
going at once.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, nice. Okay, guys, if you're watching, if you have more than 200 analog inputs in your studio setup at home, please let us know in the comment section. I'd love to hear who can beat Anders in terms of the number of inputs here.
Okay.
From the comments, still
Let's find another microphone. Yeah, let's talk a little bit and I'll find a microphone, okay?
I'll take out Anders for a while and he'll adjust his microphone settings. Sorry about that, people. I'm going to talk a little bit while he's fixing that microphone, okay? So, people, making music shouldn't really be about gear or techniques, should it? But sometimes it is, especially for us making synth-based music. We have to record our synths. We have to have the synths either in plugin form or hardware. And as such, we have to be able to use the hardware to get our sounds across. And let me. Oh, he's working. He's working. Good job, Anders. And if you watch this little thing here, check this out, people. This is me many years ago. That haircut is well. Let's not talk too much about that. But if you see in the background there to the left, right over the top of the CRT screen, you see a little bit of a patch bay. So I've always used patch bays. Patch bays are really some call it the heart of the studio. And in Anders' case, he didn't use patch bays. He's using mixers and going into mixers and out through the mixers and into his sound cards, Dante, etc. So he doesn't use patch bays. So here we have a different approach. And let me show you this one. This is also a old picture of me, and it's kind of blurry because it was taken a long time ago. But I've always had some patch bays going in my studio setups, and I still swear by patch bays. I think they are a great addition to a studio, and I like to have patch bays for easy access to synths, even though they're not directly hooked up to the sound cards. So that's kind of an 80s way. And when it comes to making the actual music, again, me and others would differ a lot in this department as well. If you watch my old series, A Song is Born, where I go through how I make a song from scratch. I compose a song from scratch. And that's really how I was not brought up because I don't come from a musical family. But when I started to make music, I started by making music just playing on a piano or home organ, and I just recorded everything I did in the room on an old tape cassette recorder. And if you watch this still here from the first episode in my series, A Song Is Born, you can see that I'm holding here a little Zoom H1 handheld recording device. Always when I make my music, I sit down at a piano and I start playing, and I find the melody, I find some words, I find some structure. And while I'm working on those first initial bits of a song, I record everything in the room onto a recorder like this. And I can just sit there for a couple of hours, just, noodling along. And sometimes I get in my opinion, a great hook, and I instantly remember it throughout the session. And sometimes my hands just go through different things and different structures, and different words come up. Some are just mock words, some are lines, sentences, phrases I've just picked down from the air, and everything gets recorded into that machine. That way I can always go back if I can't remember anything, but I have a vague whiff that I did something good in the beginning of the session. I can always rewind and find that passage and listen to it and see if it's something good worth getting into later. And often when I have the structure of a song ready, a verse, pre-chorus, chorus, bridge, etc., I start messing around with the top line and the words, and I also record my top lines and words into this little recorder on the top of the chords or whatever. Maybe I have already made a backing track, and I just sing over that into this little recorder in the room, and trying out different types of top lines, etc. And this method of making music has served me well over the years, whether I'm working on my own music or music for other people. I've written lots of songs for other people, both melody and lyrics, in Norwegian and English. And I always start making a song this way. I like to have most of the song ready, finished in its almost final structure in terms of verse, pre-chorus, chorus, etc., and top lines, everything in place, harmonies, basically everything before I go into my DAW and start to arrange it. And the question is that way of working obsolete? Anders, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Is it better?
To me, it sounds pretty much the same, but again, let the people decide.
How about this? It's really loud here.
Hi, people. Can you hear Anders better now in this SM58, if I see this correctly?
That's correct.
Yeah. I don't know if you've heard what I've talked about while you were messing around with the microphone. I start everything up at the piano or guitar for that matter. I do that occasionally as well, and just flesh out the chord structure and everything that way. But as we've talked a lot in the past, you don't really work that way, do you, when you're starting up a new song?
No, it's well, it depends. If it's with someone who's writing lyrics, I usually do. Well, I do the same, and regardless, 'cause I search for sounds that invoke something, something that I want to that I want to hear. And then hang on, I'm just gonna adjust this. So then I'll just play around and see what happens, and then if someone's making lyrics or something, that's cool, and then they play off it and go back and forth.
Yeah.
But I usually go for sounds and stuff. I never done that classical doing something on a guitar or just a piano and
no.
I'm plotting out everything. So it's a little bit more like
from
the end of the spectrum.
Yeah, from what I can we're both on social media, YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and things like that. And of course, we get a lot of posts from people talking about music and synths and gear and stuff. And from what I can see, to me, it seems like almost everyone that posts, at least the posts I see, do it like you're doing, pulling up a template or a fresh page in their DAWs and start messing around with sounds and drums and get their groove going. That seems to be the default way that the workflow most people tend to use. I've always found that. I'm talking about me here. We're just talking about it. No rights or wrongs, definitely. But to me, that's always seemed a little bit strange, because when I do that, when I try that, because I've done that as well many times, I tend to feel that my melodies and chord structures and the song as a total kind of disappears a little bit, and it becomes secondary to the groove and the sounds. Would you agree with something like that?
Yeah, it's definitely a risk that's going to happen if you don't have any. Well, I guess it depends on if you're experienced or not. If you're experienced, you can do my approach and still think about the melody. I'm just 90% of the time I'm just making instrumental music. So I just something that feels good, and then I usually do the backing first, and then I do final lead on top of that. So it's quite opposite.
Yeah. I'm happy to say that in the comments we seem to have fixed the audio issues, and that's very, very, very good.
Yeah, there was a setting in the audio that said automatically adjust. I guess we don't have to. We can't trust the AI.
No,
the algorithms in the back.
Never trust the AI, but that's good, people.
That's topic for a different stream.
Yeah, back to the topics here. And one thing I've thought about is when I'm listening to chart music today, I think a lot of the music made today comes from people just pulling up a DAW template and putting some samples in and start going for a groove, more than finding a nice melody and chord structure, because I find very little. I'm not saying you're like that, not at all, because you're not. But a lot of chart music, they seem to go that way, I think, because there are very little in terms of modulations and nice chord changes and stuff like that. It's basically just moving along on a sort of flat timeline. There are no ups and downs, no counterpoints. Very simple music, I think.
I would also say that I would say the same thing. My approach is that my thought is that if you listen to vocal lines these days, they're really the same. I've said this before. It's really just a few notes up and down. That's what it is. Yeah. You have this limited range of what actually does, apart from some songs and some musicians out there. But just flat lines, so that that means that the chord changes doesn't have to that you don't have to do any changes, because everything can be around that little thing all the time. Instead of if you go back to the 70s and the 80s, and I said before in the last stream about chess. If you listen to the vocal lines in chess, the musical, it actually has to take you. It takes you places, takes you on a journey, and the chord progressions are much more intricate and much more. Well, I think I feel that they actually do something with you. You're challenged instead of listening to some kind of as of AI is not AI in this state. It's just artificial near intelligence. It's just using its machine learning. It's of things. So it's just using what's out there, and whatever is out there is a lot of the same. It's just been the same for the past 10, 15 years or more. So that means that the pool that it's looking at, it's very limited. That's why people, okay, this sells, so I'm going to use this because this one sold last year. I'm going to sell it
Yeah.
this year as well. So that's why producers do the same and musicians doing the same thing.
That's very interesting because with the rise of AI and the music that the AI is learning from. So if a producer is using AI now and want to have AI make a song similar to what's been popular for the last 10 years, the AI engine will basically look at the same flatlined type of music, which has no ups and downs, and just churn out something in that same formula. And we'll have just as bad modern music in 10 years because it's looking at what's popular now.
Exactly.
Are we just the two old guys in Muppet Show right now, just talking trash about what's
sort
happening?
of, I think so. We're both that, and we also have some valid points because we have a background in I'm thinking a lot about this, and yes, of course, we're two grumpy old guys from Muppet Show and yelling at crowds, just like Rick Beato. But
Yeah.
we also have a background with music education and knowing how to operate your instrument and using chord and using theory is important. You can say what you will. You can buy 3,000 MIDI packs and you can just out and just throw them in there and oh, that sounds good. Yeah, but it sounds just this good. But you want to be here. You want to be up there with the big ones.
Yeah.
And everybody keeps, okay, oh, well, you're always ranting about the 80s. 80s wasn't that great. But, well, if you actually go back and listen to the structures and harmonies of many of those there's a lot of crappy songs in the 80s. Also in the 70s and the 60s, a lot of crappy songs. There always been. But all the good ones were made by people who did have a good, strong classical and jazz background, either or maybe both. And it merged into what became that became those theories that they brought with them became what is the foundation of all the good stuff that we find pleasing and enticing of song structures and compositions and melody lines and everything in the 80s.
Yeah.
So, and then it kind of flattens out, and because another aspect is that it wasn't available for everybody back then. Now everything is available, so everybody can do it, and it's so easy to do all the stuff that we had to do. Well, you did more of that. I didn't do that so much back in the days because we're a little bit different in age and everything. But now everything is at the fingertips. You can do everything, bam. But we have to work our asses off. You have to sample it, and you were limited, and you have to be creative within a very small frame. Now it's this big. So
you're absolutely right. I have a video coming up later this summer where I talk about my background in terms of having to learn music theory or music theory in a more general way, because I had to face people that would expect me to know these things. I'm not sure I made better music because of my knowledge, but it certainly was no disadvantage, I think, to have that knowledge when I made my music in the 90s and 2000s, for example.
Comment here from Braga. Hey Espen Anders, today's pop songs has no bridge, not one. And they don't even try. Yeah, exactly. Because I heard you mentioned something about structure and AB and everything, chorus and everything. And I always use the old. I was brought up on songs using the intro, verse, maybe one or two verses. Then have a bridge, then you go to the chorus, and you go back to verses. Maybe a counterpoint or something, and then a couple of more choruses, and then an ending. That was like the pop song.
Exactly.
And that's always been my thinking, that a song should take in a journey. It's just making grooves, making just one part, eight bars of stuff looping. Well, it's cool, but it has to take you somewhere. I mean, music needs to take you somewhere on the journey for it to
Absolutely.
be interesting. Unless you're doing spinning or exercising, then you can just put on some trance music and let it run for 5 minutes and just have a little bit of, you know.
Yeah,
I don't
we did.
trance. I also like some good trance and techno and also stuff, but just like
Absolutely. I know that like what Trevor Horn did with Frankie Goes to Hollywood in the 80s. If you take a song like Relax, that was made based on a drum loop he had in his Lindrum, and it's very little happening in terms of chord structure in Relax. It's just an E minor, but even so, they did actually engineer in ups and downs in that song as well. So it has a lot of highs and lows, even though it's basically a yeah, just a pattern based groove going throughout the song. So his musical background really helped even a song like that in the 80s to have its ups and downs and counterpoints and stuff like that. So it definitely didn't hurt that song that Trevor Horn did have a extensive musical background. Trevor Horn is a
of
bass
course, yeah.
player. He knows his instruments, and that always helps. Stephen Lipson as well, who was his assistant and engineer. So it definitely helps. And talking about yeah, what was the topic? What did you say just before that?
Me?
Yeah, you said something
I
I
kind of
picked
forgot
up
now.
on, but my mind wandered off to Frankie Goes to Hollywood here. But yeah, the bridge, because that was the comment from one of the commenters here. Yeah, just before we went live in the stream here. I saw a comment from whatever place online that TikTokers, people on TikTok, youth on TikTok, they want shorter songs.
Yeah,
Isn't that
it's
typical?
horrifying.
5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Everything has to be shorter because the attention span is getting
Well,
it's decreasing.
I know, and I've actually thought about as I've been, Dagny. You guys maybe know Dagny is a Norwegian singer from who's quite. Well, she should be famous.
I
And
know
she
I
makes
know who
good
it
pop
is.
music.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she's one of the. I usually scoff at most of the modern music, but that's actually well, she and I've been doing a lot of gigs with her as well. So because
Yeah.
my company do events, and she's playing at corporate events and concerts and festivals. So and she can actually produce some good songs and compose some good stuff. But
Yeah.
I just checked out her latest album, and many of the songs are actually just bordering 2 minutes, just above 2 minutes, maybe
Really?
shy of three. So yeah,
Oh,
it's like getting shorter. So it used to be 3 minutes and 20 seconds was the prime radio length back in the day, and as
that's
above that, it
that's
was maybe in the 70s you could play 5 minutes, and you have Pink
yeah.
Floyd stuff going
Yeah.
5-6 minutes if you had good time. But it just went down to 320, now to 3 minutes. It's going to be less than 3 minutes, and it's.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's going to be entirely because of TikToks and YouTube Shorts, but it's. I think those two have a lot of impact there because of the
I know
attention span.
that. Yeah, I know that when Spandau Ballet released True, I think that crosses the 5 minute mark in its radio edit, and it was some radio station that was reluctant to play it because of its length, but it still became a hit. Talking about Dagny, I like many of Dagny's songs, and I have just one issue with the Dagny's music, and they were using too much de-essing on her voice on the studio versions. I don't know how she sounds live, but on the radio, it really sounds bad. Her S's, that's another issue. Maybe I have to use de-essing.
A little bit of lisping, yeah.
Yeah, because in the 80s, people watching, listening, the S's were a lot sharper than today. If you're listening to chart music today, you can almost never hear any real S's. They're really using de-essers on S's on chart music today, and I hate it. I like to hear my S's cut through That's me. That's the 80s ways. If you're making 80s music, you have to go easy on that de-essing.
Well, that's a good point. I'm not sure
If you're
why. Could be a lot of things. Could be the speakers people are using nowadays much more fuller, and there's a lot of much more oomph.
it could be the
Maybe
microphones used in the studio.
well, depends. I think the whole chain used back in the days. You can, if you go back to early 80s and you hear Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, the album. If you listen to all the songs, they are really thin, and that was because they did all these retakes on tracks with the Dolby noise, and then they took it off. When you do that, it gets sharper and sharper and thinner. So if you listen to Somebody to Love, it's really thin when you compare it to something new and modern. It's good, but it's still also, that's part of the thing that they did back then. Nowadays, you don't have to do that because you have everything in the DAW, and you have non-linear editing, non-destructive, and it's so much more. So you have much more, and I think if you look at the spectrums, I think sounds. If you look at the spectrograph, it's really big at the bottom, and then the people are looking too much at their graphs, and I think a little bit mix and match about well, maybe not knowing how to do things, and maybe mastering step is doing something that they shouldn't have done. Maybe the studio mix would have been better. But I'm not sure. Could be any of those things in a combination.
I have a really nice trick for natural in the room de-essing that really should take care of all the S's, so you don't have to faff around with it in the mixing session later. Let me just illustrate. If this is the microphone, like the microphone you're using there, the SM58. So if the singer is singing into the microphone here, and if you just put I don't have it here right now, but if you take a pencil and put it like this in front of the microphone, just like that, and you have to tape it or whatever, find some DIY solution there. So you just sing right down there. The airflow will go around the pencil and get pushed, sort of out of the microphone's capsule, and that way it will actually take care of most of the bad S's from the singer, and you'll have a totally natural DIY solution for your de-essing. It works actually quite well.
Never heard of it. That was a new trick.
and I've learned that from a quite famous Norwegian producer, which produced a lot of records in Norway in the past. He used that in the studio when the singers had very sharp S's. So I've used that myself, and it works actually quite well. But Anders,
keep rolling.
But let's keep rolling. So back to that song we're working on. Okay, so I flesh out my song on the piano or guitar while I'm singing, humming, noodling along, taking a record player with me or a tape recorder, or today it's a digital audio recorder. I'm recording everything that's happening in the room so I can go back and listen to it, and that way it helps me remembering. But in your case, if you're going to start up a new song, let's say you have a person wanting to make a backing track, or you just think that today I'm going to make a song from scratch. How do you begin?
Well, it's really, it depends a little bit on mood and creativity. But I usually start with maybe finding some melody lines, some instruments, and finding some kind of pattern or loop or arpeggio or something that tickles my funny bone. And then I see if this sounds good, and then I just put that down, and then I work around that and add whatever I feel. Usually some drums to keep a beat, and then just actually laying bricks by brick after building, and see how it goes. It's a little bit of hit and miss, but turns out to be some results.
Yeah,
basically.
So you basically start up a DAW session, and you start. Do you lay down drum beats or loops, or do you play some drums with your fingers on the keyboard? How do you do it?
I usually do live drums with some general MIDI compatible drums. From the Motif XS7, which is the Yamaha Motif XS7 is master keyboard, which has the most of the what do you see? Has 68 parts and a lot of stuff going, so I can have everything
Nice.
going here. And then I usually, let's see if we can find something here. Depends on what we have. I don't know if it's loud enough. So, I don't know if this is working. We have, hang on. So, depends on the mood.
So you just so you audition a bunch of sounds and just trying to find something that you find inspiring at that moment or whatever?
Well, yeah, I do have some fixed sounds that I usually go back to. I have a standard for TX816, which is like for Yamaha DX7.
Yeah.
Which are nice and lush, and
Yeah, nice.
so that's usually a keypad that I tend to use often. Then we can do Top Gear if you want to do that. No, sorry, Top Gun.
Yeah.
So, like this. Just do a pattern like that, and then I record that one down and see what happens. Then I usually go down and, let's see. Drums. So let's see if we go here and we can do recording. Just gonna usually do a lot of quantizing.
So yeah, okay.
For instance, like that, and then we just loop that. And they showed 8 bars. Now we just do 4. So if we go back to the let's transpose. And there was a little mishap in the drums, which we need to correct. So there we go, and we do, hang on. That's not supposed to be there, it's supposed to be there. You were saying something?
So you're now basically working on this sort of intro to a song or whatever. This is
well. I just get something down. I don't see if that's going to be a hook line. It's going to be just a generic backing. It's going to be maybe it's a bridge. I don't know. Sometimes it's going to be some like a opening hook that I start with, something that can be the main part of the song. So. For instance. and you can go where you want from there actually. So.
Yeah, nice. Here's a question from the audience here. What do you do not to quantize to death? Are you using a lot of quantizing yourself in your music?
Yeah, well, all my music is very hard to the 16th note. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I also do shuffles, and I do triplets, and I do it depends on the groove. But I also do a little bit of stuff that doesn't have to be or that shouldn't be quantized. You know, organ stuff, like things that you do when you go some stuff. I usually don't quantize those so hard, and I go in and adjust a little bit. And
Yeah.
sometimes I can also add a little bit of human groove quantizing, but it usually works.
Yeah, because I see now that you were working in MIDI now, right? I guess.
MIDI always, so that I can go back and change everything. That's
Yeah.
been my entire workflow since the start of using the arranger keyboards, and then Roland XP50 with the sequencer, and then adding stuff to that, and later on DAW.
If I pull up that question again, and if I'm answering the question, the way I work not to quantize to death is that I record a lot of my stuff played by hand as audio straight in. So I don't go through MIDI at all. I just play the part by hand, and if I'm too off in timing, I just re-record the part. But by playing maybe 60-70% of all my parts in my music, they are played by hand. So in that sense, they're not quantized at all. But I've, of course, some fast synth bass and arpeggios and some parts that require strict timing. Of course, I have to quantize as well, because I am making 80s synth pop after all, and quantizing was a big part of that. But I think a good way of not having to quantize is to play it by hand, record it by hand as audio. Do you ever record anything as audio at all, or is it always MIDI first?
Very seldom. Actually,
Okay.
I just use MIDI for the most part. Since my sequencer now is powerful enough to actually play 280 channels at the same time. That's 10 interfaces with eight outputs, and potentially 16 channels per output.
So, and as I said in the beginning, there are no rights or wrongs in how you do things. We're all doing things differently. So just to show the people watching that many ways can lead to Rome, because even if you're using MIDI, you don't have to quantize, and if you're recording in MIDI, unless you quantize, it will be as you played it by hand. So it's not that using MIDI automatically makes it sound like a sequencer in strict timing. Far from it.
Exactly. Your version will give you more human feel to your music in that regard. So that's definitely usually a plus. Depends on but it depends on the music. Everything. I also had some guitars and stuff. Not usually my playing, but I get other people to record stuff, and then that will add to the human feel song. All the live instruments and also vocals will.
Yes, I know you're using often you're using saxophone, and that is of course played by a real saxophonist that you've brought into your studio, and that sort of always gives that extra human feel to everything. It's often enough with just one instrument on top of everything strictly quantized, and it'll sound more human because of that single instrument. It's very nice to
Guitars are often exactly. Guitars are often a good way to do that. And I do some when I do. I have those old Roland CM64. That's a U110 module basically. And they have some guitar sounds that I play with without quantizing and the strumming, and then I by much of it by hand, and I go in and just adjust them so it sounds a little bit more on the beat, but also it's not straight. It's not like a chord. It's like a strum going like this. So that's a nice way to fake some acoustic guitars in the background.
Exactly.
So that gives a little bit more of a human feel.
Yeah, and just let me just go back to that MIDI thing. When I'm working on music for others, or especially clients that pays for my productivity and fast delivery, often I always use MIDI myself, because I have to go back and maybe change a patch or something like that. I never record. I never do live playing by hand with music to clients if I know they're gonna wanting me to change something the next day or the next day and the next day and the next day, etc. So that's always MIDI.
Yeah, I usually do some. I use talking about guitars. I use Nexus 4, or that's the latest edition of the Nexus family, and the expansion pack FM 1, I think.
Let's hear it.
They have a guitar sound which I also use a little bit of decay, and I use ping pong. And hang on, time. Oops, a little bit low. I'm strumming that. That's works wonders in my music. So and echo out at the wazoo.
But just because I'm curious, because I don't use it myself, when you have a plugin like that, with these are obviously samples, I guess, put together in a sort of package. It's a rumpler. But how's the license? Yeah, but how's the licensing situation on that? If a client comes to you wanting you to make a sort of commercial for a radio station, can you use that plugin to make that?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So it's not only for your personal music.
Plenty of it. Yeah. Well, just like it would be the same if I'm using any other hardware synth and I'm playing a sound or factory sound. Like, okay, well, you like this? Okay, have it. And why should Roland come and hey, you have to pay me a license for using the sounds you just bought an synthesizer? Why? So Nexus or VFX, you buy it, you bought it, and you can use whatever you want. And,
so
of course,
you're sure of that? I'm just curious because I've
okay. I think so, because I can hear most of the professional music out today, they try to do custom sounds. So using factories, I use 95% factory sounds in all my music. I don't know if people can tell. Some people can tell, oh, this is a factory. I can hear a lot of factory sounds and stuff. I heard some song, I can't remember which one, but I heard, oh, that's a Nexus something sound. Like, okay. So it happens.
Exactly.
So, but yeah.
And another thing, Anders, that we haven't talked about is we've talked about the hardware situation, the routing, etc. We talked about how we use the DAWs, etc. You have a sort of a template where you have easy access to all your synths, etc. And when it comes to the mixing situation, what are you using the most in terms of reverbs and delays and stuff like that? Are you using plugins, or do you have hardware effects for that as well?
It's a good mix. I have a lot of Valhalla. Everybody's using Valhalla. It's good. It's basically a 480L in a box. So
it is. I love it.
No denying that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you can do so much, and it sounds everything from gritty, boxy 80s verbs to modern, big, lush TC 6000. You know, the big TC electronics.
Definitely.
But I use that I use those for internal stuff. So my setup is half outboards and then half depending on it's mostly outboard stuff, but I also a lot of stuff. You know, I have drums and samples and all the internal Nexus and other soft synths playing in the DAW. They are using either internal. The Nexus has a pretty good internal reverb. A lot of stuff going on with delays and everything.
Yeah.
But I use Valhalla for everything, for claps and snares and a lot of other stuff. When I record Christina's vocals and Børge's saxophone, for instance, I use Valhalla. But I also have a Rev 7 from Yamaha, which I've done a couple of videos on. I have
I know.
in the LS9 I have there is a Rev modulation it's called Rev X. It's it's based on the Rev series. So the LS9 has a lot of those Rev reverbs. I have a two PCM 70s from Lexicon.
Yeah.
And I have the Ensoniq DP4 Plus and the TC 2290 delay.
That's a classic.
And of course, and also the Strymon Big Sky and TC Corona chorus.
Okay, so you have your fair share of outboard effects units.
That I use. But the problem with my setup is that everything is stem mixed from each of the Behringer X32 mixers. So I use a lot of stuff internally in those, and they come back in a stereo mix.
Yeah.
So I have five stereo mixes here coming in.
Yeah.
And I usually don't process those. They go straight, dry as a bone into the final mix. So I do actually use. So I have a little mix. I have lots of Behringer effects inside because the Behringer effects are it's okay. They're okay for 80s music anyway. It sounds what you would have in the 80s anyway. So
exactly.
Then I use some of those outboards I mentioned are routed here, so I can add them where I want them for stuff. So
what you're basically saying is that you have a set of synth sounds sort of stem mixed through your mixers before they entering your digital or your audio interface, so to speak, into your DAW. Yeah. So you have to do some creative choices pre-mixing, so to speak.
Yeah, it's since all of them are. I used to have, as you know, those old Roland M160 mixers. They were made for the MKS series, all the MKS 10 to or 7 to 80 or 100.
Yes.
But I had to discard them because they were limiting all of everything. Because if it looks nice to have everything in an MKS look and an 80s look, but it's also there's just noisy and there's less possibilities of doing individual stuff on each synth. Because when I go into the X32s, I can do individual processing. I have a full mixer with
absolutely
all the compressors and gates and limiters and EQ and lots of reverb and effects. So I can do the process. I'm submixing, and then it comes into the LS9 and it goes as a balance. So LS9 is more or less like a summing mixer, more or less. Yeah. These days. So everything actually happens. First and foremost, I select sounds. So that works. So if you start there, finding sounds that are good, you don't actually need to do that much processing.
Exactly.
You find the sound that fits your expression. If you're finding yourself EQing everything out of a zoo and back again to make a sound, you probably started with the wrong sound.
Yeah.
That's my 15 or 10 cents or whatever.
That's why
finding the bricks, finding the right bricks, placing the right brick in the order.
Yep.
That's the way to make it. And then you mix it and you glue it together with the reverb and effects and of course volume levels and also basically.
And let me pull up a question here, which you've sort of answered on your behalf, as you're doing sort of stem mixing session. I can answer this on my behalf. If I record reverb, if I have reverb on the sounds that I record, And the answer to that is most of the time, yes. If I'm recording a synth, I often put effects on that synth sound, and then I record everything wet, as we call it back in the day. And that means that I can't change it afterwards. So it is a creative choice I have to live by. Otherwise, I have to delete the whole track and record it again at a later time. And by then, I might not even have that sound I had when I
Exactly.
recorded. So it is a creative choice, a choice I have to live by. But doing a lot of wet recordings makes it a lot more easier to mix the song later, because it's not much left to do when you adjust the volume, the faders.
Well, you certainly can't dry it up. You can make it wetter, but you
I can make it
can't
wetter, but I
take
can't.
it closer. But you can push it further back.
Exactly. So I do a lot of that with my own music. I record a lot of things as it is, and it's sounding like that in the final mix as well. But when I'm working with or for clients, which will demand revisions every next day for a couple of weeks or so, I never do that. I record everything dry and keep everything tidy and in MIDI, so I can change sounds faster and do effects changes. So it depends on if I'm doing music for my own or for other people. So no hard rules in that regard, but I do record a lot of things wet, as we call it back in the day. I think that's a way of limiting your choices at the end, which can be liberating in a way when it comes to the final mix, because if you have a gazillion options to choose from in the mix, you might end up having a subpar
limiting
mix,
yourself.
maybe. Yeah, limiting yourself. So that's sort of a way to think about it. But again, no hard rules. You do what you think is right for you, and that is the right decision for you many times.
Exactly.
Yeah. So okay, so you have your stem mixes, or you have your sounds coming into your mixer, and you record your mix in a live pass, or do you record the sounds from your stem mixers and then mix it a final time? How's your last steps in the process here?
It's always it's a full mix live.
Okay.
I go back and forth, and I just on the play, and I do MIDI automation. I do volume automation on whatever it's been, drum samples or things have been recorded. So I automate those with the DAW, and just basically just play through and go pass by pass, and then figuring out what's good, what's bad, what needs to be done. So, and then everything is just some from the main out, just into the big knob, and then as a mix down.
Okay, so I guess we differ there as well, which was really the point of this video, how we do things differently, which is fun. So you don't record each part into your DAW and then do the mix. You do it sort of old school live with your fingers and pushing buttons and turning up
MIDI automation. I don't ride during, because it's like Bob Claremont, you had to write it, and that was always different there. So there's so much stuff going on. I don't have time to. So I just make sure that everything is done, and I automate using MIDI. So if I need to up and down the volume in the MIDI, I do that, and just adjust velocity levels and such, and then I just so I just set the levels as much as possible.
Because I did a video a couple of months back where I said that I've totally abandoned any form of automation in my mixes. I'm only using clip gaining these days for adjusting volumes and to balance things out. So interesting that you're actually doing it the way I sort of would do it back in the 90s, while I'm doing things now, which is actually quite modern in terms of mixing, clip gaining. We didn't have that in the 80s and 90s, to put it like that.
No. It's you always have to you have to watch your gain levels no matter what you do. So I make sure that nothing is clipping. Avoid anything it's better to be a little bit low. You can actually boost it in the equalizing using
Yeah.
a leveler. So
Yeah.
it's better to have a little bit more headroom than going too high and there's nothing you can do. You have to re-record it and take it down if it's clipping. So
Exactly.
but I use I actually all my clips or my all the audio, the wave files are at 0 dB or less,
Yeah.
and then I ride the volume up, and usually I go up to 0, and then I find myself having to go to my mixer and taking down to minus 10 dB and start. And it's easy to push the faders up and up to get. Oh yeah, I need more of that. I need more of this, and
Yeah.
suddenly wait, everything is peaking in the red. Oh come on, I take it down again. So
Yeah. Exactly. So
it's hard to. Yeah, I just want to see that. So that we have you have the digital domain and you have the analog domain. Has so many layers and layers of signal stages going. So it's easy to get lost. Why is this clipping? Oh, it's clipping all in some of the earlier Behringer mixers. So I have to go in. Oh, just that one. So.
Yeah, gain staging in the digital domain. That's a can of worms, really. So we don't have to go into that right here. But let's see if we differ on the last thing as well, the mastering stage, because we both master our own songs. So when we have that final mix, the final stereo mix, it's time to master it in the sense of where it's going to end up, maybe in terms of compression and in dynamics and limiting. I don't know if you master your songs based on where they're going to end up, but do you master everything in the DAW, or do you have a mastering suite of software, or how do you do it?
You're looking at it right here.
Okay, let's see it.
11.
Ozone 11.
Right now,
okay.
There's nothing. Yeah, it is nothing. I need to run first. You can get all the stuff you want in here. So you can have. I can't. We can't zoom in here. Actually, that's a little bit shame. But anyway, so but
okay.
I usually just I mix the song as best as I can and getting it as punchy as possible and as high as possible. Because let's face it, you have to face the loudness war at any point these days. So I just do that, and I have this just you have to play it by the loudest part, and I do this this automated it's listening and analyzing, and then gives me a starting point. I guess we could I can load in it later, and I can show you. But I just do I just adjust the levels and all the settings by hand. I usually don't want. I don't take this as a gospel. I just use it as a starting point, and then I figure out, okay, what do I want to have? Because I try to do the mix I want is usually the mix I want out. I just want it louder and a little bit more polished. I don't do I don't do too much.
No.
So I'll find something here, and I'll let you know. So if you wanna have something, you can. If you have questions.
Okay, so you use Ozone 11 exclusively for mastering, then I assume, since
basically I didn't find any. I didn't. I never bought into the ways. I had some illegal bootleg piracy copies here and there, but that was in the old days. There's so many choices. Everybody's swearing for the L2 or the L3 compressor there, and this and that and those things. I was like, okay, well, Ozone is good. It does
sure.
Want, and I was thinking about getting the Fusion from the SSL, the outboard box, to have a little bit of shine, but I'm not sure if it's worth all the money.
No. No, because I also master mostly in the box. I'm using WaveLab myself, and I have certain plugins which you can put into WaveLab. WaveLab is in the mastering suite in itself, like Ozone. You can put in plugins from other manufacturers in Wavelab, and as such, I use that and have some old Wave plugins and stuff like that, which builds up my mastering chain. But I also like to go outside the box for mastering. It depends really on the song. So I have some which I would call high-end EQs and stuff like that, which I use occasionally for mastering. Most of the time it's done in the box, but I like to master outside the box if it's something really special or something I think would benefit from having some analog shine to it. But a lot of plugins these days are really good, so it's really not necessary, in my opinion, to have it sent outside, as not for the type of music we're making. But how do you think about the AI solutions coming, automated stuff, like you can just send your for mastering, you just send your stereo mix to an AI engine somewhere and it comes back mastered for you? Have you tried that?
I tried it. I didn't do the online thing, but I tried the. There's a plugin that someone. There was a in the Facebook feed that said, "Oh, this is a new thing." And it's like I was really skeptical. Okay, and then, try it. Like, okay, well, they sent me free copy.
Okay,
I used it, and it was a two-edged sword. It was like, well, it works well if the mix is decent and good. It works.
Okay,
it works well. If the mix is really bad, it doesn't work. That was my test. I did some really old crap that I did from years ago. That sounds awful. And I tried it and I was like, oh, this is just... It took crap and then it works. So instead of polishing a third, the nice polished third is like, you got it the other way around.
but Anders, if the mix is bad, can you get a decent result?
Can you fix it in the mastering? No.
Can you do it? Can you fix it with manual mastering?
No.
Okay.
That's your new tagline. If the mix is bad, you can't fix it in the mastering. That's
if it's bad, it's bad.
It's bad. It's bad.
If it's bad, if it's bad, you can make it louder bad, but you can't make it good bad. Yeah. Something like that.
Worse. It's gonna be a worse turd than that.
Okay, but I heard something you said, which I no longer live by in a way. You said that I think you said you had to make it louder to cater for streaming platforms or whatever. Those are my words, but I think you said something about you had to make it louder. Do you? Do you think you have to make the mix louder?
Or the master don't have to do that, but no, not the master, rather the mix. I make it as loud as possible. It's as good as possible, and I don't have the gear or the skills to do that. The final mix being a fully mastered thing. I need to do a process afterwards and do the 11 thing. So I just make sure that my mix is even and good and level and balanced as much as possible, and get all the stuff out that you want to have over here, and so the drums are punchy and the bass are coming in where it should be, and then of course all guitar solo. And the guitar solo has to be in your face, but not all here, but it needs to be where you can have it. This is a good guitar solo, and then it goes back. So all those things have to be in place, and then you do the mastering level. Thing. So I just see here. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Do you have something to show us?
I was gonna see if this one works.
Let's hear it.
So I just put it in as it works. Oh, we didn't have the right output. Okay. And it does this. It boosts everything.
Yeah.
So now we have this is the new one. So now we have this one. Let's see if we can make it bigger. So you can hear the difference.
Yeah.
This is without, but it
It's
did
definitely
some
louder.
boost up. Yeah, some boosts and some weird stuff that I didn't want to do. So, but I usually go in and do this, and I do the. I usually go a little bit wider, a little bit space. And then we have imager. We go to a little bit wider in the stereo image, like here. This is the crucial part. So I usually go for 14 or less, 14 to 12 LUFS.
Yeah.
Or is it minus 14? Yeah.
They say
no
that's
louder than 14.
yeah, they say that's the optimal value
Yeah.
for having your songs ultimately on Spotify or streaming
Yeah.
media
If you want to
platforms.
do it properly, I haven't. I bought the loudness penalty plugin.
Mhm.
So, but I don't have it installed here at the moment. This is a new Mac. So I have I have to get all my old plugins back up and the stuff. So you know how it
Here's
is
a
migrating from.
Here's a comment for you. Lead sound needs doubling, someone says.
Yeah, this is an old project. It's already done. It's open
already
roads
done,
on my
yeah.
channel. You can hear it. But so basically that's it. And then I do this, and then once that's done, it's I just take it down, and then there we go. So and then we just bounce it.
Yeah.
So
How do you bounce it in 24 bits? How many kilohertz?
yeah,
What resolution? Yeah.
for CD qualities, I do 44.1.
Yeah.
So I usually go in. If I do well on this song, I did a fade out on the original one because this one. So the lead here, and there's a guitar solo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this was the first version without the solo. This is a guitar solo in here, but then I do automations, fade out the song. Hang on. So we go here, and then I do a automation down here and fade out, and I just stop. So I just do a mix down, and bounce a disc, and then I bounce song, and press enter. So basically that's it.
Nice. And that's the song.
Yeah. Well, that was just this one though, but yeah, basically.
Yeah, sure.
Stuff like that, and then I go. I usually do this, and then I go test. I listen on speakers. I do whatever people. Oh, you can listen on your phone, but people are listening people are listening to music on their phones, so you have to check on your iPhone, even though it sounds creepy. But if your song like, oh, it sounds, I hear the bass, I can hear whatever I want. Then you've done what you can for that part of the spectrum. But
yeah,
you shouldn't do your judgment on the iPhone or the mobile quality. I listen to my speakers. I listen to crappy speakers. I listen to my car. I actually listen a lot on my Apple AirPods, or the old ones with the earbuds with the cable. I just got the new wireless, the AirPod Pro, which were difficult and very strange to listen to because it's much more bassier and boomier than it used to be. But I went in and tweaked. You can tweak the settings. So
yeah. So you listen to your mix or your final master on many different types.
See that, Johan, if the bitrate is terrible, it's probably because of the StreamYard. So you can't listen. You have to go to my channel, and you can listen to Open Roads there, and you can hear the final product.
Yeah, I think I think it means the bitrate of this stream, which is I guess we have something. It could definitely be improved. It's been a little bit jerky today. I have to admit to that, unfortunately, but not much I can do about it as we go along.
No,
it went better when you changed your mix. Yeah. So interesting, because I used to take my mixes out into the car and on different speaker systems and headphones and stuff like that. I never do that anymore. I have a mono computer, just with plastic Logitech standing between my two main speakers, and I just A/B between that and my stereo monitors, and that's that. And I've found over the last 10 years or so that if it sounds good on that Logitech, it's basically like the Yamaha NS10s in the past. That's if it sounded good on them, it would sound good on anything. And if it sounds good on my little cheap plastic Logitech, it'll sound good on the iPhone as well. But since I've pulled all my music down from streaming media, it's no longer a big concern of mine, because it's not out there in that capacity anymore. So, but definitely, if you don't know your room, don't know your speakers or monitors, you definitely need to check your mixes on different types of setups to make sure that it'll translate well to other systems. Definitely. So that's a good thing to do still. Absolutely.
Do you, when you're done a mix, do you leave it and then come back later? Because that's what I do. I go and listen to it on all the stuff, and then I kind of like let it sit and mellow a little bit, and then I come back and okay, so because I do mental notes, and okay, I need to do this and do that, and I feel what needs to go up, and then I have to fix. Oh, there's a little error there, and everything from mixing to actual things that are played wrong. So mixing, things that are
I never. It's funny that you ask that, because I never go back because of the mix usually, but I can find myself going back to change some instruments or playing, like you're saying. So it's more like I'm hearing that solo or whatever, it shouldn't go like that, it should go like this, and then I go back and re-record that part, but almost never
melodically changing things.
Musically changing things, but not almost never in terms of the mixing. That's always spot on in how I want it at the first mix. But I mix my music as I go along, because I change things as I record them, and when everything is recorded, the mix is sort of done itself. I just have to export it out and then do my mastering. So it's more like you're saying, musically I have to go back and maybe change a bass sound or whatever, but rarely because of the mix itself, because I know how my room sounds, I know how my monitor sounds, so it's rarely a case of having a unbalanced mix most of the time, that is. But I'm very familiar with that, coming back and stuff like that, and I would never master my music 5 minutes after the mix is done. I would always master at another day, so I'll just have fresh ears in terms of ears not bleeding from sitting around a whole day working on a song. So I think that's a good advice.
Actually, usually I do the mix and then I do the mastering, then I export it so I can go and listen, and send it to you for inputs.
yeah. That's a nice thing to do between friends, and just I'm not going as much to you with my mixes as you've done to me, but that's more of a thing we have going. I think you have some nice feedback on your music here.
Thank you, Pierre.
So guys, you're watching, so you can see and hear that although me and Anders makes 80s, 90s inspired synth pop, which many of you think is sounding very much the same, we're doing things quite differently in terms of everything from how we make the song and work our way through it in terms of both techniques and a lot of things, but we do have a lot of things in common as well, and it's fun talking about it. And I see that you in the comment section appreciate this little talk, so that's nice. If you have any last minute questions, please throw those questions out right now. And there was a question before here that I sort of stored away, and we're not going to go into that now, but I've answered this many times before. My whole last stream was based on the answers for this question. But you, Anders, if you have a short answer for this: retro expensive hardware is not a requirement. Modern cheap synths are perfectly suitable. Would you agree with that or disagree?
Uh, Actually, yes, because it all depends on what you want, and what are your needs when sitting down and making music. Do you want to have a particular hard? Do you want to have the D50 because I love the exact sound of this synthesizer, or can you use emulation? Can you use the cloud version? Can you use the GX8P soft, what do you call it? J8, the soft synth that you're using, Espen? I forgot the name.
The
Emulation of the
PG8X.
GX PG8, yeah,
Yeah,
which is basically identical to the original way. So
I think it is.
yeah, I just like hardware gear because grew up using. I grew up using an old Technics N1000, and then I moved on to the Roland, and I started building. I got the 760 sampler, this the sampler. And I had those two keyboards, and then I had I just built gear upon gear because
Yeah,
that was the way back then. Because this was the late 80s, early 90s. There was MS-DOS, and Windows 3.1,
yeah,
which
yeah,
had no. There wasn't any software that you can use. They had Doremix, which is like a MIDI drag and drop thing, but sequence, everything was hardware. So you had to use hardware, and that's Espen and me. That's our background.
yeah,
But I've seen that many of the modern synths and samplers and or the software packages are just as good. Uh, there are some naysayers that will say, "Oh, okay, I can hear the difference between that." And maybe my ears are just shot, and I can't really hear the difference. I couldn't hear the difference between. I can't hear the difference between the 4 and the Rev 5 unless I have them in front of me, the MKS 80, for instance.
yeah,
So, but I think it just find synths, finds things that you like, and just use it and make music. And if
yeah,
you don't have much money and you can get pirated, I don't condone pirating, but we all started with pirating. We got copies and stuff, but now things are free. It's
yeah,
software synths all around, Dext, the PGA Dex and everything. So you can do that as much as you like, and then I've paid all my illegal software nowadays because I bought so much new stuff, and I feel like
yeah,
I paid my dues. But we all started there anyway. But just be creative and get your stuff however you can do it. And if you get money, buy software, buy whatever you want. And
yeah,
I think that's just make music the way you want to make music. Always combat the feeling. Oh, what do people think? What do people with people like this? Oh, am I? Is it good enough? I struggle really hard with the demon of being my own. What do you call it? Being your own critic is the worst part. You're always
yeah.
the worst for yourself. So
Being your own worst
so
critic. Yeah,
yeah. So
yeah.
because yeah, just make music that makes you feel happy.
Exactly.
That's my motto.
For a more in-depth discussion of that question, you can watch my last live stream, which was dedicated to that topic, actually, where I talked about this for 1.5 hours. You'll definitely rewatch that. But like Anders says, if you're starting out, just use whatever that makes you happy. If you have money, buying an expensive synth and you want that, do it. If you don't have money, buying a cheaper synth, if that makes you happy, you're happy, and just use it to make some good music, or just faff around and make sounds or whatever. Again, whatever makes you happy. There are no rights or wrongs. And yeah, me and Anders, we're old enough to remember a lot of those old synths that we tried in music stores and really got hooked on. And having those synths now means a lot to us because we have so many good memories attached to those synths, and that in itself can
That's
be
the point.
that can be rocket fuel for our imagination and creativity. Now I definitely don't need my Prophet VS or my Juno 106, because both of the synths are being replicated more than well enough in software. But having those old synths is a joy
Tactile
regardless,
feeling.
because we wanted them back in the day and we couldn't afford them, and we tried them in music stores and we have good memories attached to those synths. Therefore they mean a lot to us now, but definitely not only because of their sound, because you can get that sound anywhere else. So, but again, like I started, the journey towards what we're doing is often also very important. So if you're watching this and you ask this question, if you want a Prophet VS because you think it will bring you joy, then get it. But if you just want sound because you love the sound of the Prophet VS, you want that sound in your music, go for a plug-in emulation, because the sound is there much cheaper. So it all depends on what you want with your instruments. So
one last remark about your
sure.
music store that we talked about.
Yeah.
I feel a little bit sorry for people today, because I'm not sure how it is in the States and all the countries you guys are in, but in Norway, the music stores are on a decline. I used to grow up going to Gjøvik Musikk, which is like used to be one of the biggest in the southern part of Norway, and they had a lot of stuff, and I could drool literally, but figuratively drooling over all the keyboards and trying and just experimenting and being.
Me too.
I don't think people do that today. I've seen some music stores in the States, what you call again, Guitar Center and all stuff, and it's like Thomann Music. They have a lot of stuff, but so Thomann Music may be the last place where you can actually have everything on display and you can have the latest stuff, but today you don't have the assortment that we had, and because now everything is so much polished, and I feel like I said before, I don't get goosebumps anymore of any new gear.
No, not at all.
But the old gear back in the day in the 80s and 90s, I'm like, oh, look at the JD 800.
Yeah.
And all the brochures and stuff, and you read them 1,000 times and just looking and imagining, oh, what would it be? What's it like? What is it going to be? How is it going to sound? Can I use this? And so I'm not sure if I think people are missing out on some good stuff there. That there used to be a bit of.
I know exactly as you mean, and
for us.
Yeah, let me just add to that, Anders. You're definitely right, and I agree with everything you said. I can still remember, this is 1987. I'm doing probably my last year on what's the equivalent of high school in the US, whatever. I'm 17 years old around and and I'm walking into a music store in a city where my school was. And I'm walking in there. I had heard and read brochures of the new synth from Roland, the D50, which was about to hit the world. And I went in that music store, and just as I came in, the guy running the store, he had a keyboard which said D50 on the back. It was black and sleek, very sleek, a big, nice display. It had a joystick, and he just pushed down some keys, and I think it was Heaven Staccato sound. I think it was, I learned that later, but the moment he played those chords with that sound, I was totally blown away. I had a couple of synths at that time from before, but that sound in 1987, it was totally mind-blowing, and I can still remember how much I wanted that synth. And I don't think anyone today walking into any of those, if there's any music stores today, but definitely not by any YouTube demo video. When you hear a synth on a demo on YouTube today, you're not even close to having that sensation going through your body as we had back in the 80s when we heard all those synths that are now classics, which was then new. That feeling will never be surpassed by listening to a YouTube demo video. So I'm definitely agreeing with you. It's a bygone era, just like renting movies on a Friday night at your local video rental shop. That's something else.
Yeah, but the demonstrator sits online. It's an art. Everybody can just play some stuff and then put it
Yeah.
in it, but you have to actually play it. There's one guy. There's one last thing I will say is that Bert Spornberg, the Dutch guy that used to work for Yamaha. Just check out. He's very intense and very special. It's not for everybody, but he can really demonstrate, especially the XS7. So just check out Bert Smornberg and Yamaha XS7, and he knows how to just play everything and then stop, and he goes on and like, oh, that was good. I want to hear. You want to hear more, and he actually plays. So he shows all the stuff on the keyboard. So demonstrating keyboards is an art too. It's not.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
A couple of questions coming on at the very end here. We've sort of went through this already earlier in the stream. Do either of you ever write with plugins, then later re-record the MIDI with hardware? We both do that in some capacity. Anders, you're using MIDI to record both plugins and hardware because you have everything lined up in your DAW. I might do MIDI for myself, but especially for clients. And on rare occasions, the client tracks where I used MIDI, some of that would be re-recorded with hardware in rare occasions. But one thing about having already done the MIDI track with one instrument, it's not as easy as just using another instrument on using that MIDI track, because different sounds needs different playing. So more often than not, if I have a MIDI track done with one type of sound from a plugin, for instance, when I later want to replace that with a hardware synth for that same track, I most often have to re-record that track from scratch because the MIDI notes, they're just not right for that new type of instrument. I'm pretty sure many of old-timers would agree with that, like yourself, Mr. Jensen. So that's that. And this one is for me. You know, I've always wondered, Espen, what is your age?
106.
Yeah, I feel like it. I'm close to 100. No, I'm 55, actually. I was born in 1969. I think I've said that before, actually, on my main channel. And here's not a question. I'd like Espen to cover. Cover what? Cover my face. Yeah, cover up. So
cover your feelings.
Cover your feelings. So Anders, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's been fun.
Thank you. Having us on your live show.
We got that mic sorted out, definitely. So that was nice. Oh, here's the last of the question. I'd like Espen to cover the first New Order album. That's a big ask, a whole album. Well, I did cover one New Order song a long time ago, which was on a YouTube video on my channel. It's not here anymore now. It was Round and Round. So I have actually covered a New Order song at one time. So that's that, people. Thank you so much for joining in on this live stream and being with us. And it's been a lot of fun going through our differences, but also how we do things in a similar way. And maybe we'll hook up in another live stream later on. Who knows?
Nice.
So thanks for watching, people. Thanks, Anders, for joining me on here. And all of you have a nice summer. And I'll be back on my channel soon. And please check out Anders' music on his website. Thanks. Bye-bye.